Hi, everybody.
Hey.
I'm Margot True. I'm the food editor here at Sunset Magazine in Oakland. And with me is Irvin Lin, who's the author of this beautiful baking book called Marbled, Swirled, and Layered. It came out late last year and has been praised across the baking kingdom by people like David Leibovitz, and Ree Drummond loves it, and Alice Medrich, the queen of chocolate, you may know her. And they've said some incredible things, like, for instance, David Leite, who is the publisher of LeitesCulinary.com, he says, "I dare you to lick the pages." I thought that was good.
That's awesome, yeah.
And just so you can see what David is talking about, look at this pie spread, you guys. Look at that. Look at these pies. And Irvin, you're going to make this pie down here.
That one right there.
And what is the name of this pie you're going to make today?
So this is a triple berry, triple oat crust pie.
Oh man. Okay, explain the triple berry and the triple oat crust.
So the triple berry, it just means that there are 3 different types of berries in it. So there's going to be strawberry, blueberry, and blackberry in there.
Okay.
Which is kind of a standard either mixed berry pie, or sometimes in the South they call it a jumbo berry pie. And then the triple crust it's a little bit unique in that most pies have a double crust, or not, a lot of pies have a double crust. There's the bottom crust and the top crust. I actually put an in-between crust in the middle.
Wow.
And one of the reasons why I do that is to create more structure in the pie itself, so that when you slice into it, it kind of holds together more.
Which is especially important, or comes in handy when you have a really liquidy pie.
Yes,
right?
and I feel like one of the issues I've always had with berry pies is that you slice into them and they don't hold their shape. And I really wanted to create a pie that really, when you slice into it, you slice into it. And it's like, it holds its shape.
Wow, okay,
Hopefully it works out.
Well, it looks gorgeous, so I can't wait to try it and to observe your techniques, because there are a lot of unusual tips in this recipe. And you guys, if you have any questions at all, please ask them. And Kendra, who's off camera, will read your questions out loud, and Irvin will answer, so don't be shy.
Yeah.
And also, you're willing to answer any kind of baking question, aren't you?
Yeah, and I'm also willing to say I don't know that if that question stumps me. But I'm happy to answer any baking questions you guys have, whether it's on pies or anything else, cookies, cakes, whatever I can do.
Brilliant. And also, Irvin, just so you know, he's really well known for doing interesting spins on classic recipes. So you've just heard his berry take. And we might talk a little bit about some of the other recipes in the book later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's start.
Okay, so the first thing we do is we're actually going to make the pie crust. So the pie crust, because there is 3 layers of crust, you make a little bit more pie crust than you normally would.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to do this in the food processor because it's much faster to do, and also because I want to grind up the rolled oats a little bit.
Yeah, now why oats? That's so interesting, because usually you see that on crisps.
Yeah,
you know?
I really like oats. I really like the texture that the oats give, and also a little bit of flavor too. I think the oats work really well with the berries.
Okay.
So it's an interesting, in this recipe itself, I have a sidebar that talks about using different types of flours to give your crust just different textures as well. So whether it's something like cornmeal, that'll give it more of a crumbly texture or something like that, or just various different ways to play around with your crust. Because I think one of the things that people don't think about with pies, they always talk about the filling, but they don't necessarily think about the crust. And the crust, you can, there are 2 components to a pie.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the crust is just vital. I could eat crust without filling.
I know, I love crust. I do.
I love it. And I also like how in the book you say that oats are, a vegetable or something? You say oats are health food.
The health food, yeah. You got fruit and you got oats. Yeah, so you're like, it's like, you can have this for breakfast. It could be like oatmeal, right?
Of course.
Oatmeal with some, berry compote.
And a cup and a half of butter.
And, yes, and a little sugar. But, it is what it is.
Delicious.
Yeah, okay. All right, so let's do this. So I'm going to go ahead and add the flour.
And this is just straight up white flour.
This is straight up all-purpose white
wheat.
Yeah, all-purpose wheat flour. Yes. And I'm going to add the oats to this. And you guys are going to post this recipe, right? So I don't need.
Yes.
Okay.
We will definitely do that.
All right. So 3 cups of flour, in case you don't, but I'm sure you will, and a cup and a half of rolled oats. It could be thick cut, it could be regular, you could be even quick cut, baby, whatever you want, whatever you have.
Okay.
Just if it's thick cut, you want to pulse it a little bit more.
Just as long as it's not the slow cooking kind, right?
Yeah. So there's that. And then I'm also going to throw in a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of ground ginger, just to give it a little bit of extra kick.
Ooh, that's interesting. And Irvin, you can give me any of the bowls that you're done with, and I'll get rid of them for you.
Perfect. There we go. Then I'm going to close this up. And then I'm just going to pulse this about 10 to 15 times, and just until you get the oats themselves that have like kind of broken up a little bit.
Okay. And the pulsing gives you more control.
I feel like it does, and it also it stops. So if you have it continuing going on, it just sort of spins around, but this lets it stop. And I think the stopping and starting also helps break it up a little bit.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I oftentimes will sit there and after I'm done and just sort of feel this to make sure that the oats have been broken up a little bit. And you can see they've been broken up just a little bit. And that's exactly what I want. I want a little bit of texture. I don't want to have it completely, you know, into powder.
Right.
After that, I use 3 sticks of butter, so it's a cup and a half, and I've cut these into cubes. This should be cold butter.
Can you put it in the freezer?
You can put it in the freezer if you want. I always just use it straight from the refrigerator, though, so that works too.
That's cold enough.
It's cold enough, yeah. Because what we're going to do after this is we're actually going to chill the dough.
Okay.
So yeah, but you can you know do it in the freezer.
Irvin, you have a question.
Oh yes. Question.
Do you need to use a food processor? Can you do this in a bowl at all?
Yes, you can. You can totally do this in a bowl. The one thing I would say is the oats need to be broken up. And that's one of the reasons why I use it in the food processor. But you can if you have, if you use baby oats, that might work, or quick cook rolled oats. That would also work because they're already sort of broken up and they're smaller and finer. Or you can just take the oats and throw them into a blender or into the food processor by itself.
Could you chop them?
You could. That would be very messy. But you totally could. You know, more power to you if you want to try chopping them up. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, what is your name? Lovely person who asked that question.
Arlene.
Thanks, Arlene.
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Okay, so I'm also going to pulse this about 10 times.
Okay.
And basically I want to break up the butter so that it is into small, like pea-size shaped pieces.
Okay.
So. That was about 10 pulses, and let's see how it looks. Has that been broken up? Yeah, they've been broken up into small pieces like that.
Okay, so it's okay if you have some that are more almond.
Yeah, if there's some that's a little bit more chunkier like that, that's okay too. Sometimes I'll break it up in my hand, but mostly it's pretty good. Because I'm going to be adding water to it, so as I add the water to it, it also will break up a little bit as well.
Okay. And the point of having these butter chunks is so that you'll create big flaky pieces in the dough later, right?
Yes, it creates this nice flakiness. So what happens is the butter chills, and then when you roll it out and bake it, it melts, and so you have these layers, these striations of dough.
Oh, the layers.
The layers, yeah. So we're going to turn this on, and while we turn this on, we're just going to pour 3/4 cup of water into this.
Now, obviously, if it's a human day, you try to easily less.
Yeah. And so it seems to be pretty, that looks pretty doughish. Let me get this to you.
Here.
Take this out. Now you'll notice that some of it will be like very wet, and some of it will be.
And flour also takes a good long time to absorb water, doesn't it?
It does, as does the oats actually. The oats do too. Yeah, the oats do too. Yeah. So I'm going to dump this out here, like that, and then carefully remove the blade.
I'll take it from you.
Awesome. And then I'm just sort of going to, you can see some of it's wet and some of it's dry. I'm just going to go ahead and fold the stuff in. Oh, I probably should have pulsed this just a little bit more. But you'll see as I do this.
Yeah, and it's important not to be afraid of a lot of shaggy crumbs initially, right?
No, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of pie crust. Do not fear the pie crust.
What is the thing people are most afraid about with pie, do you find, with crust specifically?
I don't know. I I actually, that's a good question. I'd be curious if anybody out there has, like, what are you afraid of in terms of pie crust? Because for me, I think pie crust is actually a pretty easy and forgiving thing.
Wow, you're so advanced, Irvin. You're so advanced. Really, honestly, what are you guys afraid of when it comes to pie? Just voice it and,
Yeah, I'm wondering
don't have an
if,
opinion.
people do get scared of the idea of pie crust, making your own pie crust.
Uh-huh.
And I think people, and I understand that, but I do feel that there are certain things you can do. Like, I do chill this dough after I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And once it's chilled, it seems to function just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see I'm kind of working in the dough a little bit, like this.
Okay, so it's okay to kind of handle it a bit.
Oh yeah, I totally handle my dough.
You do.
Yeah.
Do you have cold hands?
I do have cold hands, and I think that, or not super hot hands, but I do think that people who have super hot hands, they get scared of the melting the butter and stuff. And you can always dunk your hands in ice water or whatever to cool them down a little bit if you want.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, Samin Nosrat was here at Sunset doing Facebook Live. She has hot hands, so she like freezes everything.
Yeah.
She barely touches the dough.
Yeah.
She chills the dough. And so I guess you have to know your body.
You know what? I feel like it's very forgiving. Pie crust, if you're making pie, to be honest, if you're making pie and it's homemade, like if somebody serves me pie, and it's homemade, it's amazing. Like that's fantastic. So you can see I've got dough right now.
Mm-hmm.
So all that loose stuff kind of got incorporated in as I massaged it.
I want to try it.
Yeah.
Mm.
You like it?
Good flavor. Mm-hmm. You can really taste the oats.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's just a little bit different.
It is, and it does taste slightly healthy.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Just slightly.
Just slightly. So because I'm doing triple cut, triple layer, triple oat crust, I'm going to divide this into 3 pieces.
Right.
So
I'll get you some plastic wrap.
Yes, give me some plastic wrap. And you can use a knife if you want. You can measure this out if you want. I just kind of freeform it. Again, I just feel like you shouldn't be scared of making pie crust.
It is so true, because even a less than perfect pie is still pie.
It's still pie, right? It's still pie. And the worst thing you could do if the pie crust turns out horrible, you've made cobbler. So.
Is that what you do?
I'm all like, sure, why not?
All right. So you guys, if you're just joining us, I'm Margot True. I'm the food editor here at Sunset Magazine in Oakland, California. And with me is Irvin Lin, who's the author of a beautiful book called Marbled, Swirled, and Layered. And he's also the creator of the Eat the Love food blog. And he's making a triple berry, triple oat crust pie. Very unusual. And we're at the triple crust stage right now, the pastry part.
One more piece right here.
And please ask questions if you have them, especially things you're afraid of when it comes to pie.
Yes. So I've made this, and I'm going to actually put this in the refrigerator for an hour just to chill. And you can actually make this the day before and have it chilled overnight.
How long can you keep it in your fridge?
I would say you can probably keep it up to 48 hours. Anything after that, I would freeze the dough.
Okay. And how long will it last in your freezer?
Like maybe a month.
A month? Okay.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, maybe longer. I know people. I mean, if you think about the components, it's just butter and flour, and oats, and salt, and a little bit of ginger. So it probably could keep longer than that. But I usually don't have pie crust in my freezer for longer than a month. So.
Too much baking.
Yeah, I bake a lot.
Okay, excellent. I'm gonna put this away. Also wanted to tell you guys to turn your volume way up. We had some technical difficulties, you may have noticed if you tuned in earlier, and we're speaking without microphones, so just lift the volume, and we're trying to project. We're doing our best. Thank you.
Let us know if we're not loud enough.
Yeah, if we're not loud enough, say louder, and we'll get louder. Okay.
I can project.
He's good.
Okay, so I actually made some dough already.
Okay.
I made this yesterday, so it is already chilled. So I'm going to go ahead and use this dough. And so on a clean-ish surface,
Okay.
we're going to roll out. Actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make the filling before we do this.
Oh, let's do that.
Let's do that instead.
Okay.
All right. So let's switch over
All right.
and do that. So the filling's pretty easy. I have 2 cups of blueberries and 2 cups of blackberries. I'm gonna throw that in here.
So you're actually cooking your berries first.
Yes, so I'm giving it a head start. So again, one of the reasons that I felt I was always concerned about pie fillings, and one of the reasons I think it tends to get very runny is because it doesn't have time to set. So I like to give it a head start by cooking it just a little bit on the stove. You can skip this step if you want, but my fear is always the crust on top will burn before the filling sets. And this gives me just that little extra head start.
Oh, interesting. So does that mean that your pie cooks faster overall?
It still takes about an hour in the oven.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because of all those crusts?
Because of all the crust, yeah. So.
Okay.
But this process doesn't take that long, an extra like 5 minutes-ish. So, and then I'm going to take, this is about a pound of strawberries, and I'm going to go ahead and just throw in half of these.
And why do you save some as fresh?
I kind of like the brightness that you get with that, so I usually have that, and I feel like they start to extrude more juice, and so I kind of like having a mix.
Okay, so like some little jammy.
Yeah, a little jammy and a little bit more fresh. I mean, they all kind of get mixed in the end, but this gives this kind of a head start.
Okay, got it.
And then from here, I'm also going to add half a cup of sugar. You'll notice I feel like half a cup of sugar isn't that much sugar for a pie filling. And one of the reasons why is I also grate in an apple. And that's a little unique for this recipe as well.
Yeah.
So basically this recipe was developed because I was trying to find a pie recipe that had, like that when you sliced into it, you actually are slicing into a berry pie that did not fall apart and become like pie soup.
Oh, they always do, don't they?
Yeah.
In fact, you serve them in a bowl a lot of the time.
So this recipe was really designed to be like, if I want a slice of pie that is a berry pie that isn't super starchy, I'm going to be throwing in also a 1/4 cup of tapioca starch.
Tapioca starch?
Tapioca starch, yes. So this is something you can buy at most upscale grocery stores has it, or you can do it online. I really love this as a pie filling. You can substitute cornstarch for it if you want.
Yeah, so here's cornstarch. You guys probably know this.
But I think that tapioca starch actually gives it a much cleaner, like you can actually taste the berry flavor a little bit more with tapioca starch.
Okay, and then just for show and tell, what's the difference between that and this kind of tapioca, the little beads?
So you can see that this actually is a powder.
Right.
So the only difference is just basically how fine it's ground. So when you have the little beads like that, what you're going to do is you're going to end up with little like chunks of tapioca in
little fish eyes.
Yeah, little chewy fish eyes. And then with the powder, it just strictly thickens as is.
Now, if I couldn't find tapioca flour, could I just put this in a food processor and blend it?
You could. You could totally grind that down.
Okay, because this you can find everywhere.
That's pretty easy to find. But I feel like nowadays tapioca starch is becoming more and more popular.
Is it?
You can find
okay.
that. Yeah.
I am going to look for it.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
So I'm going to throw in that, a 1/4 cup of that, and then I'm going to grate in the apple. And the reason I use the apple is twofold. I want to sweeten the pie a little bit, and I feel like the apple itself has a pretty clean sweetness that you don't quite taste, because I'm only putting in 1 apple compared to the berries. So you add this sort of natural level of sweetness, but you also get a lot of pectin, which apples have. And the pectin also helps thicken the pie.
Yeah. Because berries really do lack pectin, don't they?
Yes, they do. And I think, for me, it was just like I'm trying to create as many levels of thickening without it being overly starchy or overly, floury. Because I really just want something that has a super strong berry flavor.
So yeah, you all probably have had those pies that are just so stodgy, So this is interesting that your techniques are all avoiding that fate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is it important what kind of apple you use?
So in the recipe, I usually call for either a Gala apple, Gala or Gala apple, right there. Yes, one of those. Or Jonagold. They're pretty neutral. They're semi-sweet. They're not super tart and firm like a Granny Smith. You can probably use that if you want, but and they're not like a Fuji, which is like very, very sugary. They're kind of like middle of the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they're pretty easy to find at any grocery store.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
So there's that and that.
So, are you adding any acidity to your filling, or do you feel the berries
I will, actually.
You will?
At the end of this, I'm going to cook this a little bit until it thickens. And then I'm going to add just a touch of balsamic vinegar to it.
Balsamic vinegar?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And is that because you love that kind of deep, dark flavor?
I do. I feel like the balsamic vinegar really gives it kind of an added like depth. And it really, and the acidity kind of creates a juiciness to the berries.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really like. But if you are not a big balsamic fan, you could certainly add lemon juice, or you could add apple cider vinegar. It's not much. It's maybe like, I do 1.5 teaspoons of it. So there's not much in there, but just enough to kind of add just a little bit more.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook this, and as you cook this, it'll start getting, the juices will start flowing out, and you'll notice that the juices themselves will be kind of a milky color, like because the tapioca hasn't quite dissolved or hasn't cooked yet. And then as you cook it longer, it'll start to thin, or not thin, it'll start to go like more translucent.
Okay. Now, cornstarch, I know if you overcook cornstarch, it'll start to get thin again.
Yes.
Which is just not a nice surprise when that happens.
Yes, when you
It's
overcook
really,
it, yes.
when your gravy that had been thick a second ago suddenly becomes juice.
Yes.
Does tapioca have that issue?
I haven't overcooked tapioca, so I don't think it does. But I don't know. So, but I've never had an issue with it. I've never had it cook. So I actually did already make this filling. So in the interest of time, we can go ahead and skip to this. But here you can see, and let's see if I can show this.
Yeah.
You can
you guys
see,
see this?
can you see how the juices right here are a little bit milky and not translucent? And then the already cooked right here,
Oh yeah.
you can see it's like it's darker and more translucent.
Right.
So that's what I want to get to. So you have this filling that's a little bit darker.
Yeah. And quite jammy.
And quite jammy. And it's like, it's almost stringy, the filling right now, and the stringiness will go away once we start cooking it more with the juices, more of the flow and more of the, when you put the fresh berries in.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make this crust.
Now, have you ever seen anybody do this kind of triple crust thing, or is this just from your own mind?
I read about it somewhere. So this is not I came out of nowhere doing this, but I don't remember where I read about it, and I've never seen it in a recipe. I think somebody was just like, try doing this, because someone was asking, how do I make a pie, that isn't like crazy runny? And somebody on some forum somewhere was like, why don't you try using 3 crusts? I was like, that's a brilliant idea. What did I think of that?
It seems so wacky.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
is there
super-
room?
Yeah, it's
But
super
clearly,
wacky.
clearly there is. But it's important that you do a deep dish pie, right?
Yes, I pick a deep dish pie pan.
Okay.
Because I really feel like I want to jam in as much as possible to remove berries.
Right.
So
So, Irvin, I know that you started baking really young.
I did.
Unusually young. Why?
When I was in 3rd grade, I did. So my mom and dad always wanted me out of the house during the summertime, so they always sent me to summer school. So I had summer school, and they always sent me to various different summer schools. And one summer school class between 3rd and 4th grade, I went to a cooking class.
Oh.
And I grew up in the Midwest, St. Louis actually, but I also grew up, my parents were both from Taiwan. So my mom primarily made Chinese food and Taiwanese food and stir fries and that sort of thing growing up. She was great. We always had homemade meals. She's like, it was great. But I didn't have a lot of like snacks. Like, dessert for me was fruit, orange slices at the end of the meal.
Until you were 9?
Until I was 9. And
Wow.
I went to, and I have it at friends' houses, but I'd be like, I don't know what this is. So I went to this cooking school. Whoa! And we made snickerdoodles. And they were like magical. It's like I'm working with my dough, I'm working with the flour. I make what seems like Play-Doh to me. And then all of a sudden I get to put it in the oven and I have cookies. It was this magical thing. And I became obsessed with baking.
Oh God,
Absolutely.
your mother was proud of what just happened to our child.
So my mom actually, the biggest thing with my mom was that she would say I would make this huge mess. Like I was like, I'm gonna bake. So I would bake all these things and I'd make this huge mess. And then my mom was like, I don't want you to bake. And so she made a deal with me. She said the only way that she would let me bake is if I had to clean up afterwards. And so from that point on, I would always clean up after I baked. So yeah, snickerdoodles, chocolate chip cookies, brownies, whatever I could bake, I baked. And it just sort of followed me throughout my entire life.
Right. So clearly you started out baking the classics.
Yes.
Know. At what point did you start doing things like this one? I just can't wait to make this one. And this one, of course, but roasted banana peanut butter cream pie. Instead of banana cream pie, roasted banana peanut butter cream pie. How do you think of these things? Do you start with banana cream pie and then just go to Pluto?
I'm always thinking about different flavor combinations, which is why one of the reasons I wrote that book is I was always intrigued with how I could combine these different flavors. And the idea of banana and peanut butter is a classic, the Elvis.
Sure.
The Elvis. So for me, it seemed like a natural progression to make that pie.
But the roasted banana,
yeah, because when you roast a banana, you get more banana flavor. So I was like, let's roast it. Let's try to for me, it's always about trying to figure out a way to give more flavor, to give it more punchiness. And I think that's something that doesn't happen a lot with desserts. I think with desserts, people tend to, they make a chocolate cake or an apple pie or whatever, and that's it. And I'm like, well, how do we make the apples more appley, or how do we make it like the chocolate cake with more chocolate flavor or more intense? How do you do that, and how do you give it more dimension? And I feel like that's one of the things that I'm always trying to figure out, little tips and tricks, and trying to make things a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. So basically, your desserts are like desserts to the third power.
I try to. Yeah. I try to. Yeah. As much as possible.
Well, last time when Irvin visited us, he made these incredible brownies that were topped with Cracker Jack. It was crazy. They were so good. One of our staff members here actually made herself sick.
Oh. That's awesome. Or not for her, but
yeah, she had a good time while it was going on.
I'm sure. Wow.
She ate more than half a pound, in one day.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing. I
They're
did not
delicious.
know that. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I rolled out the crust. I folded it into quarters like this just because it's easier for me to unfold it right here. And you can see this crust, it was a little hard in the beginning to work because it was very hard and cold, but it rolls out great and it just drapes like a dream like this.
Yeah. So you just have to be patient when you have a bit of a cold crust, right? Just wait for it.
I know people who sit there and whack it with their rolling pin, but I'm just kind of patiently just rolling and rolling.
Or just go off and do something else for 5 minutes.
Let it soften just a little bit,
I'm trying to hold it for you.
Yeah. It's okay.
Wow.
I'm okay. All right. So I'm going to roll this out again. This is the middle crust.
Okay. So you're obviously not filling it yet.
I'm not filling it yet. I can fill it now.
You could, and it wouldn't impact the crust to have those juices sitting there on the crust.
Maybe a little bit, but I don't think it'll impact it that much, to be honest. Yeah. As long as you've let this cool a little bit. If it's super warm, then maybe it will.
Okay, I think we have another question.
Yeah.
Can you use a metal pan for this, or should you always use glass for pie?
And who's asking?
This is Arlene again.
Arlene!
Great. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm partial to glass, and the reason why is because I like to be able to sort of lift it up and see how the crust is doing underneath. But I've used ceramic and I've used metal. I've used all of it. So it's whatever you're comfortable with and what you like to use. Just be forewarned, if you do use metal, it will bake. The crust will bake a little faster.
Oh,
so because the metal conducts, you'll get a little crispier crust, I think. So you just have to keep an eye out and just pay attention.
And what about baking on the lowest rung of the oven, the lowest rack? Do you think that's important, or is it more important to be in the middle, or?
I am not that particular about my pies.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can put in. I know people who are very particular in persnickety. They don't put it on. I will oftentimes put my pies on a pizza pan, a round pizza pan, or a baking sheet, because I'm always afraid that it'll like drip and spill when it bubbles. Some people are like, don't ever do that. You should always just put it directly in there so you have the direct heat that comes up and like gives it a blast. I'm like, I think baking should be fun. You should like do what you're comfortable with. So, and if you find that baking on the lower rung gives you a better product, that's great. Go for it. For me, I'm not quite as persnickety.
Well, and then you don't have to clean up your oven.
Yes.
I made a peach cobbler for the 4th of July, and it was really good, but my mom's poor oven is covered with goo.
Yeah.
Because it went, like a geyser, and
But I do like using, I have a 12-inch pie pan, so it's just round enough that you get a little, so the heat can kind of like come around it. So I use that all the time. It's my 12-inch pie pan. I almost never use it for, a 12-inch pizza pan. And I almost never use it for pizza. In fact, I have a pizza steel. I never use that for pizza. It's only for me to bake cakes and pies and that sort of thing.
Interesting. Multi-purpose tool. Nice. Yeah, you can see, can you guys see these flakes of butter? And, like right here, and that's all going to, create the layers and the flakiness when they melt in the hot oven. Because they melt so fast that the crust is basically firms up around them.
Yes, yes. And kind of steams a little bit too, because there's a little bit of water in the butter too, so you get a little bit of like leavening action.
Oh,
so
right.
Just a little bit to get that flakiness.
Right.
So.
Nice.
Yep.
So how old were you when you started getting really wild with bacon? And why?
That's a good question.
Here you are, you're a snickerdoodle boy.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden.
In college, I still stuck with the basics, but I was obsessed with baking. Like, my roommates would come home, and they would find me baking, like, brownies at, 8, 9 p.m. They'd be like, oh, Irvin has a test tomorrow, here's a paper due. It was very obvious that I was I used to call it procrastinating, is what it was.
Procrastinating?
Procrastinating. That was, yes, that was a coined trademark term for me. It's my next book, it's procrastinating. No, yeah, so I used to bake all the time. I think once I got out of college, it's probably actually once I started my blog, because I felt like I was baking a lot of very standard things, and I got kind of bored with it. I was like, well, everyone has a chocolate chip cookie recipe out there. Everyone has a chocolate cake or an apple pie. Or how do I make this different? How do I make it a little bit more unique and more me? And how do I bring it to the next level?
So what did you do to a chocolate chip cookie? Do you remember?
Yes. So I have a chocolate chip cookie recipe. I almost didn't put one in my book, but a friend of mine asked me a question on social media, tips and tricks on how to make the best chocolate chip cookie recipe. And I was like, all right, here's a bunch of lists. Here's a list of different things, and I ended up coming up with 24 tips. Oh. And so what I did with my cookie recipe is I have it a crisscross cookie. So it's a reverse chocolate chip cookie. So it has a chocolate dough with white chips in it, and it's also a malted chocolate chip with dark chocolate chips, and it has mesquite flour and teff flour in it. So it's kind of super wackadoo. Melissa Clark of New York Times was this is insane.
Wow, I gotta find that recipe while you're rolling away.
She was I think that was the recipe that she was Irvin doesn't just gild the lily, he shellacks it and throws glitter on it or something crazy like that.
Shellacks the lily?
Yeah, he's crazy. But I think she meant it in a good way.
Yeah, she did. She is a sweetie. Let's see. All right. So now,
while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and do the pie filling. Okay. I'll put some of this filling in. So I'm just going to put in about half of this into the pie. And basically, it's just enough to coat the bottom of this in a single layer.
Okay.
So you don't need a ton because you don't have that much filling.
I'm glad you're telling us that those strings are going to
they'll totally go away because they do look a little weird, but they totally will go away. So we've done that. And then I'm going to also sprinkle about half of the fresh strawberries over this as well.
Okay. Nice.
So that is that. And then, do you have a knife?
Yes,
grab a
we
knife.
do. There you go.
Perfect. I'm just going to sort of gently lay this over here and just sort of cut out.
Oh, wow.
you know, just like that. There you go.
Okay.
Cut the pie crust.
And then you could just cut that up.
And I can use this as the top. So I'm basically just going to fit this right there in the center, just like that, so it covers. So we've got that, and then the rest of the pie filling goes on top.
Cool. Now, will other berries work in this scenario also?
Yeah,
Just
totally.
kind of any berry?
Totally, other berries will work.
How about other kinds of fruit? Could you do this with peaches? Could you do other things work as well?
Maybe. I haven't tried it with peaches, but that would be a great thing to try.
Because they have a little more pectin than berries, so maybe,
They do.
So maybe you wouldn't need as much tapioca starch, or
Yeah, that's possible.
yeah. Berries really are the runniest.
The runniest, I feel.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the rest go here.
Great. So I found your chocolate chip cookies.
Oh yeah.
Here's his chocolate chip cookies, the reverse. Look at that.
I was just
How
trying to come up with
beautiful.
something that was a little bit different from the regular chocolate chip cookie. And I wasn't planning on putting a chocolate chip cookie recipe in my book until that happened, until somebody asked me about it. And I was like, oh yeah, well,
You took up the challenge.
challenge accepted.
Yes, and here's the teff flour and mesquite flour. Oh, and you have double chocolate chip and matcha green tea with white chip.
I do. So I have all my recipes actually in that book have at least one alternate recipe and sometimes two. So I try to like really give it, here's a base recipe and then here's various.
Good heavens, what is this?
That is a brownie with a pistachio butter swirl.
Wow, that's amazing. That looks so psychedelic. Perfect for the Summer of Love anniversary.
Yeah, that's right. Here in San Francisco.
All right.
All right. So now we're going to do the last pie crust.
Okay, we have another question.
Okay. Is this also
Is it
Arlene?
Arlene?
Okay, it's somebody else.
Okay.
Stella would like to know if this would work with frozen berries.
So frozen berries tend to exude a lot more juice and water with them. I think it will work, but you may want to bump up the tapioca starch ever so slightly. So I'm using a 1/4 cup. Maybe you want to use a 1/3 cup of tapioca starch, or you can just leave it as is, and it will be a little bit runnier. That's fine too. But that's one of the issues with using frozen fruit is it does tend to have a little bit more juice in it, a little more water.
Yeah, good question, Stella.
Yeah,
Thank
totally.
you. I'm sure a lot of people were wondering that
Yeah.
too. I was actually.
Yeah.
I was about to ask it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, you guys, if you have any friends who are really interested in baking or maybe a little afraid of baking, Irvin's so welcoming and nice. Share this link with them. And
Yeah, absolutely.
their baking will improve, as will yours. And buy the book. It's also a nice, ease into the wild world of baking. So you are rolling out yet another crust.
Yeah,
yeah?
this is the 3rd crust right here. And
So you
this
don't
one,
need to use this.
So I'll probably use a little bit of this just because I have it. But I always like to have a little bit of extra crust on the top when I'm doing the weave because it's always kind of
Doing the weave.
doing the weave.
All right.
So
Yeah.
and you don't have to do a weave. You can just do a plain drape over with lots of holes in it. But I'm kind of partial to the weave, and part of it is also my sister who yelled at me once when I didn't bother to weave it. I just crisscrossed it. I did this way and this way. And she's like, you have to weave it. So ever since then, I always have my sister in the back you have to weave it. So I weave it, which is fine. It is more fun. Sure.
But you also have a kind of an interesting weave technique, because it's not the classic way is straight up and down, 90-degree angles.
Yeah, and you can do it however you want, whatever you're comfortable with. There are so many different ways to make, there's millions of ways to make pie crust on top. I do it a little bit at an angle just to give it more interest, but however you're comfortable with.
Does that have a name? Your lattice technique? Not really? No, it does make you stop and think when you look at it, how? So we'll see soon.
Okay. All right, so I am going to go ahead and just cut these into strips right here.
So about an inch wide.
About an inch wide, yeah.
Wow. Do you hear the hooting of the train?
I do. Whoops. That was a timer that went off.
Uh-huh.
Let's see.
All right. So do you have to go for a particular number of strips or just whatever your crust is giving you?
Whatever my crust is giving me. How many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, probably 10, just because it's a nice even number, 10.
Yeah.
Why not?
And I bet your scraps would make good cookies.
They probably would, yeah.
Have oats in them.
Yeah.
They're a step away from being an oatmeal cookie.
That's true. That's very
With the
true.
ginger in it, this is really pretty tasty. Wasn't kidding. I like it. So you guys, if you're just joining us, I'm Margot True. I'm the food editor here at Sunset Magazine. And this is Irvin Lin. He's the author of a book called Marbled. I'm going to show it again.
Yeah.
Marbled, Swirled, and Layered. A book that has been praised by lots of prominent bakers and by many publications, including Sunset. And he also is the creator of the Eat the Love food blog, where you've done everything on that blog. Cookies, cakes, pies, and this is one of the pies from his book. Triple berry, triple oat crusted pie.
So to do the crust, you just do one on top, and you could do it this way if you want. I tend to just do it more like this.
Ah,
so that's
okay.
just you just cup it that way a little bit, and then you're going to do a lift up. You're going to just do another one right there, like that.
It's kind of sophisticated yet rustic, right?
Yeah, I think so. Sounds perfect. Sophisticated yet rustic.
So you're just concentrating on one strip at a time for this.
Yeah, that's kind of how I do
thing,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that, just lift that up there.
I'm also noticing how calm you are, Irvin. You're not a rushed baker.
I'm not. I mean, there are definitely people who are like, get it in the oven as soon, blah, blah, blah. I just feel like you should enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
You should really enjoy yourself. So,
No, there's so many things we have to rush around doing in life. Why not just slow down and bake?
yeah. And that's the other thing, too. I find baking very relaxing to me. Not everyone finds it that way, but I find it that way.
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially if you're forgiving of yourself, I think some bakers tend to have a perfectionist streak, maybe.
There's definitely, there's definitely like kind of the traditional like pastry world people who are very, very like, has to be this way, has to be precise. I definitely do, I love using a precise scale. I like having precise ingredients. I think there are ways to make things better. But at the end of the day, like I feel like you should be able to enjoy yourself. And if that means you're using a regular measuring cup, then go for it. Even though I do think that you'll get a better product if you use a scale or whatever.
Yeah. Just a little kitchen scale. That's all you need.
Yeah. So I've got my little crust right here, and then I just kind of like tuck it in.
Oh, you
like,
roll up?
I roll up. Yes,
Okay.
I roll up.
Yeah.
And to try to give it a little bit more.
And now all that butter is such a good thing now because you can mold the dough.
Yep.
Makes it nice and flexible.
It does. And like I said again, I feel like this is one of those things that, pie, you should not be scared of pie. It should be something that's forgivable.
Yeah, little flaws are okay.
Yeah. It's homemade.
It's homemade.
Yeah.
It's the mark of homemade.
It is the mark of homemade.
You don't want things to be too perfect when you're making them at home.
So I've done this, and then I do this to sort of like do an indentation all the way around.
Okay.
So I sort of flute this.
Right. Oh, I like how you use your knuckles.
Yes.
That's fun. I've seen people do three
Two
fingers.
and
Yeah.
stuff, but I kind of like the knuckle thing.
It's faster. It's also very manly.
Is it? I am a man. There you go.
All right.
All right, so I've got that all the way around,
How pretty.
and that is the pie.
Lovely.
So you can go ahead and put this directly in the oven at 425, and then put it and bake it for about 20 minutes, and then drop it at 375. So the initial high heat will kind of like help give like the crust like a kickstart in terms of baking, and then the lower heat will allow the filling to also set and everything. Or what you can do is sometimes I do this is I actually take this pie and stick it back in the freezer
Fridge or freezer?
I actually put it in the freezer. I do the
Really?
freezer for 20 minutes, and it kind of like helps harden up the butter again. And then when you go in there, you'll get a little bit crisper. It doesn't slump. You know, sometimes you have shrinkage with pies and
Yes.
stuff. And I think that kind of lets the gluten relax a little bit, and the butter, you know, get a little harder, so you can get nice flakiness.
Very good.
That is that.
All right. Now, do you do any washes or do you
Yes.
do
Oh, good question. Yes.
sprinkles?
Oh, yes.
and-
Let's do that. Let's do the wash.
Okay.
So the wash for me, my preference for a wash is an egg white, or I'm sorry, egg yolk, and some water. So I do that.
All right.
But you can do heavy cream. You can do an egg yolk, or I'm sorry, egg white. You can even use water if you want. I find that the wash with the egg yolk and water gives it kind of a golden color, like a nice like burnish right there.
Yes.
So I'm going to do that. And you just do a little brush.
And what will cream do?
Cream will it'll be a little bit lighter in color. Egg white will be the lightest in color, I think.
Yeah, all those wonderful Chinese pastries that are so glowing and burnished, those are all with egg yolk,
Egg
right?
yolks, yes, that sort of goldenness, yes.
Like moon cakes and
Yes, absolutely.
the buns, the glorious buns.
Do that. And then I'm using sparkling sugar, which you can get at specialty stores, which is just kind of like a big fat, kind of like you can see a big fat crystal of sugar right here. But you can use regular granulated sugar. You can buy like sugar in the raw terminato sugar. That'll give it the same sort of crunch with a little bit of molasses flavor. You just sprinkle it out a little bit.
Nice.
It's ready to bake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will pop this one in the oven,
Do it.
and we can try the one that you brought.
Yeah,
How's
absolutely.
that? Okay. We can move this around, and I think I have plates over
Yes.
there somewhere.
There's some plates right here.
Yeah, let's see. I'll put the pie in first. In you go. Pretty soon we're going to smell that baking pie. The best part, almost the best part. The best part is actually eating, of course.
the pie.
Okay,
All right.
move this around. All right, well, sir, would you like to do the honors? The knife is over there.
Yes.
Thank you so much for bringing this pie.
Of course.
And for showing us all your techniques.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's so interesting. It even sounds good.
This is the moment of truth. Like, did it work?
Fingers crossed. Here, I'll hold it for you.
All right.
Okay. Plates at the ready. Dun 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 dun. Oh my God.
There you go.
I have never, look. No runnage. That is amazing. And you can see the
And you can see a little bit of the
crust.
crust, but it kind of also disappears. When you eat
Yeah.
it, you don't notice it as much.
Interesting. That
Yeah.
is so interesting. Okay.
All right.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this around so y'all can see. And we have a couple forks.
There you go.
Irvin, I'm digging in.
Do it. Do it.
Great.
Your thoughts?
It is so not stodgy. That is delicious.
Thank you. I feel like the berry flavor really comes through, right?
It really comes through, and I feel like it's been supported by the balsamic vinegar
Yes.
too. You don't notice it's balsamic vinegar, but it's there like a helping hand or
Yes.
something. You know,
Yeah, it's very
Oh.
just slightly underneath there.
really good. It just feels really robust, it's an assertive berry pie. But
Yes.
it's just saying that it's summer.
This is a summer berry pie.
Delicious.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming. Thanks a lot.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
Come anytime.
Absolutely. I will do that. I will stalk Sunset. You'll not be able to get rid of it.
Come back in the fall and we'll make something else.
That sounds awesome.
Thank you guys for joining us. Margot True, Sunset's food editor.
Irvin Lin of Eat the Love, and also the cookbook Marble Swirled and Layered.
One more time. Great book. Buy it when you have a chance.
Yep.